do think that when it comes to the definition that we place onto racism and the way that we understand it, there is obviously a large percentage of white people and a hefty percentage therefore of spiritual white people who think of racism as a collection of unrelated and unfortunate acts that are certainly racist but do not really connect with each other or are not a symbol of a larger problem in some way. So I think a lot of people view racism as racist acts which are individually perpetrated or perpetrated by a group, but they are not tied to anything. They are not the result of anything. They're not part of a pervading system that also threads its way through everything else. But I have the belief, and I know that a lot of other white people in my audience have the belief as well, that racism is also occurring when we are silent about those acts that take place. Racism is occurring when we are sort of burying our heads or turning away or, just pretending really 24/7 all the time that this thing doesn't involve us. It's not, we're not needed in the bigger conversation about how to stop these racist things that happen. So I believe that not speaking up about racist acts that you witness and that you identify as racist is also racism. I believe that silence is complicity. I believe that white silence is violence, because I believe that there's a system of white supremacy. White supremacy is the belief that obviously white people are superior. Whiteness is next to goodness. Whiteness has the most credibility. Whiteness has the most beauty. Whiteness has the most influence and should have the most influence because it's the most trusted. All of that. I believe that white supremacy exists, and I believe that white supremacy is threaded through the entire machine. And what I mean by that is that I believe that you can find white supremacy in institutions, in politics, in media, in representations of people of colour, in the way that they're talked about on the news. I believe that you can find white supremacy around the dinner table. I believe you can find it in the workplace. You can obviously find it in legislation, right? So to me, white supremacy is a thread that goes around the entire machine of society, and I'm a cog in that machine. You're a cog in that machine. When you know that there is that poisonous thread of white supremacy that has gotten connected into the whole machine, then when you are a happy little cog in that machine and you keep working to maintain that machine without making a noise, without malfunctioning, then you're propping up that machine. The more that the machine is supported, the more that the cogs just turn and everything is seamless and everything just goes along and runs that way, the more fatal the machine is. Because when a white person that is perpetrating an act of racism feels very confidently that they're not going to be called out, they're not really going to face massive consequences, they're not really going to experience a feeling of being ostracized by what they see as their community, the white community, and they feel very much supported in the thing that they are doing. They've seen it done before, they've seen it talked about lots of times, they've seen it advocated by their family, by people around them, their friends, their work colleagues, their president, then it's much easier for them to do it. It's much easier to feel like it's obviously a thing that they can and should be doing. Obviously, although white supremacy is inherent in the society that's been built, the way that we dismantle it is through making sure that we don't create hotbeds where people feel like what they're doing is not deplorable and is not going to have consequence to it, or they're going to be considered a hero for it. They've never really faced pushback about their beliefs, so why would they face pushback for their actions, As a sincere shadow chaser, and as somebody that does believe that I can see a lot of the collective shadows, I can understand the collective shadows and how they carry themselves out and what they look like. I think for me personally, it would be a crime against my own self and my own psyche to get to the end of my life and know that I only used my shadow work and my self-love and my spiritual practice to address the personal, not to address the collective or my place within the collective. I think that would be a crying fucking shame. I don't want to be so spiritual that I am hypersensitive and I have to go away from the world and I can't be involved. I want to be, by contrast, so spiritual that I'm both feet in. That's how I want to be. How do we possibly prepare? How do we possibly toughen up enough to feel like we can do these things in various ways, in various settings, whatever's relevant for you? I argue spirituality. I believe in my spiritual tools. I know that they charge me up for the day. I know that they empower me. And so I know that spirituality, the fact that I'm spiritual, is not something that should limit me. It is something that should actually light a fire under my arse, and it is something that will fuel the work that I want to do and the actions that I want to take. I don't want to think of being spiritual as being aligned with being endlessly weak with no end in sight. I want to think of being spiritual as something that makes me more inclined and more capable of doing things like anti-racism work.